Jude 7. In a similar way, Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding towns gave themselves up to sexual immorality and perversion. They serve as an example of those who suffer the punishment of eternal fire. Today, we continue in our journey through Genesis. Salim Yelnats with you breaking it down. We started with Jude to connect the dots right out the gate. Let's go. Sodom and Gomorrah, along with these cities, are typically identified as Admah, Zeboiim, and Zoar, also known as Bela, which were destroyed. You know the story. Lot's wife looked back, and just one glance became a symbol of attachment to what God is removing. Jesus spoke about her in The Coming of the Kingdom, Luke 17:30. It will be just like that on the day the Son of Man is revealed. On that day, let no one on the housetop come down to retrieve his possessions. Likewise, let no one in the field return for anything he has left behind. Remember Lot's wife. Whoever tries to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life will preserve it. I tell you, on that night 2 people will be in one bed. One will be taken and the other left. Scientists exploring the region have observed that the Dead Sea's salt content can form crusts and pillars when conditions of evaporation and mineral buildup are right. The area experiences natural salt spires and columns due to constant erosion, drying winds, and the unique chemical environment. While the Bible depicts a miraculous event, the high salt content in the environment could explain how the outward appearance of this judgment involved salt formations. The Hebrew phrase referencing Lot's wife can be translated in a way that stresses a sudden envelopment by catastrophic forces. Although certain scientific elements corroborate salt formations in the area, believers see God's direct intervention as decisive. Human scientific analysis of the local geology can only point to how physically possible the phenomenon of incrustation might be. Scripture indicates it was God's power that orchestrated and timed this judgment. We begin with a family huddled in a dark cave. Lot, his first daughter, his second daughter. Outside, the world they knew has been wiped away. Sodom, Gomorrah, they have escaped with their lives. They are the survivors. They have been rescued from immense harm. Leaving a place of harm is not the same thing as being healed from it. The dust of the disaster has settled, but the terror still churns inside them. They are physically safe from the fire, but they are not psychologically free from the fear. In the damp, cold silence of their refuge, a new kind of danger begins to grow. Not external fire, but internal panic. They look out from the mouth of the cave and see only devastation. They believe they are the last people left on earth. Their father, Lot, is old, and they see no other men. The Bible presents this scene without softening its harsh edges. It does not hide the uncomfortable details. Fear can become a powerful and persuasive counselor. In the darkness of the cave, away from any other voice of reason or hope, fear speaks the loudest. It tells them that the future is entirely in their hands. It whispers that desperate times call for desperate measures. Physical safety does not automatically silence the echoes of trauma. The memory of the disaster continues to shape their reality. In many Gnostic texts, such as the hypostasis of the archons, Lot's family is connected to a figure named Noriah. While sometimes identified as the daughter of Eve or the wife of Noah, Noriah is the ultimate Gnostic heroine who resists the archons. In some interpretations, Lot's daughters are seen as earthly reflections of this higher feminine spirit. Their actions are not viewed as simple survival or sin, but as a desperate attempt to preserve the luminous seed, divine spirit, in a world that the archons are trying to destroy. In the suffocating darkness of that mountain cave, fear and panic begin to shape terrible choices. The 2 daughters, having witnessed the total obliteration of their world, succumb to a profound sense of hopelessness. They conclude that the entire human race has ended, save for them and their father. Their reasoning is flawed, born of isolation and shock, but to them it feels like an undeniable truth. In this state of mind, the ordinary rules of morality seem to vanish. The preservation of the family line becomes the only goal that matters. Their fear makes them pragmatic, But this pragmatism is detached from God's law and human dignity. They contrive a plan that is both shocking and tragic. It is a direct product of their environment. They grew up in Sodom, where moral boundaries were routinely violated, and self-gratification was the highest law. Even after escaping the city's physical destruction, its ethical poison remains in their system. They decide to make their father drunk on 2 consecutive nights. They will lie with him to conceive children, to preserve what they think is humanity. This is not malicious evil, but profound desperation. Lot is unaware. He is passive, overcome by wine and grief. The result is the birth of 2 sons, Moab and Ammon. These sons become ancestors of Moabites and the Ammonites. Those nations will have long and often troubled histories with Israel. A single fear-driven act ripples across generations. Leaving Sodom did not free them from Sodom's influence. The city's logic, survival at any cost, using others, had become their own. They had seen God's power, but not learned to trust His provision. They fell back on twisted survival strategies. The story teaches that true freedom is an inside job, not just a change of location, but a transformation of heart and mind. That transformation had not yet begun for Lot's broken family. Just as we are processing the deep dysfunction in Lot's family, the narrative shifts its focus back to Abraham. He is the man of promise, the one chosen by God to be the father of a great nation. He has walked with God, spoken with Him, and received incredible assurances of a blessed future. Abraham is not a flawless hero. As he moves into a new territory, the land of Gerar, an old familiar fear grips him. He is afraid that the beauty of his wife, Sarah, will put his own life in danger. This is not the first time Abraham has faced this situation. Years earlier in Egypt, he had resorted to the same deception. Now, in Gerar, he does it again. He tells King Abimelech that Sarah is his sister. This is a fear-driven compromise. Instead of trusting in the God who promised him a son through Sarah, Abraham relies on his own cleverness, his own small lie. Fear makes him act small. He risks the very promise to protect himself. Just when Abraham's fear-driven deception has placed the divine promise in jeopardy, God moves decisively. He does not wait for Abraham to fix his own mess. Instead, God intervenes directly to protect Sarah and the integrity of the promised lineage. God reveals the truth of the situation to the pagan king. Sarah is a married woman. The warning is stark and immediate. God acts as guardian of the covenant, preventing human failure from derailing His plan. In the dream, Abimelech protests his innocence, having acted in good faith. "I know you did this with a clear conscience, and so I have kept you from sinning against me." This shows a God who is just and discerning. Abimelech emerges with moral clarity and confronts Abraham. "What have you done to us? What crime have I committed that you bring guilt upon my kingdom?" He returns Sarah and lavishes gifts, sheep, cattle, servants, restoring her honor. Abraham, still God's prophet, prays, and Abimelech's house is healed. Grace corrects and restores. After the tension and moral complexity of Gerar, the narrative shifts to joy. The long-awaited promise finally becomes a reality. Just as the Lord had said, He did for Sarah what He had promised. She bears a son to Abraham in his old age, at the appointed time. Decades of waiting, doubt, wandering, and human error culminate in a child. The promise is no longer abstract. It breathes. They name him Isaac. He laughs. Her laughter of disbelief becomes laughter of delight. God has brought her laughter, and all who hear will laugh with her. On the 8th day, Abraham circumcises his son as commanded, a visible sign of belonging to God's unfolding plan. Fulfillment stands in stark contrast to fear and scheming. The birth declares God keeps His word. The laughter of Sarah is hope realized, unstoppable and true. Joy soon gives way to a painful family crisis. Sarah sees Ishmael mocking, a perceived threat to Isaac. She demands that Hagar and her son be sent away. God instructs Abraham to listen to Sarah. Isaac is the covenant line, yet promises to make Ishmael a nation. They enter the wilderness with scant provisions. When water is gone, despair feels final. An angel calls, "Do not be afraid." God hears the boy. God opens her eyes. Provision appears. They live. Election does not mean neglect. God's compassion meets the cast out. He hears the afflicted and provides for the desperate. The narrative settles into relative calm. Faith is worked out in ordinary life. Abraham and Abimelech make a covenant of peace. Abraham marks ownership with 7 lambs. The place is named Beersheba, well of the oath. Faith becomes tangible in wells and treaties. Abraham plants a tamarisk and calls on the Lord, the eternal God, El Olam, the everlasting one, faithful through all time. Worship becomes steady trust, not just a crisis response. From rescue to rootedness, his faith matures. Everything you need: building, boundary keeping, and peace mark covenant life. Everything you want. This is the mark of growing maturity. Everything you desired. Stepping back over Genesis 19:21, a clear arc emerges. From fear to deeper, settled faith. Rescue did not equal freedom from fear. Saved, yet carrying broken logic. Even the man of promise faltered in fear. God's faithfulness proves bigger than our failures. Promise protected and fulfilled. Mercy for the marginalized. From crisis management to consistent trust. Wells, peace, worship. From cave trauma to quiet worship. The God who formed Abraham's faith continues forming ours today.